Hi, I'm Chris Lee with Vandy Sports, doing what we do on Tuesdays this year, breaking down Vanderbilt's depth chart as it has been released, and also talking about the things that Coach Clark Lee says in his press conference. So that just ended a few minutes ago. I'm going to take a few moments to run through about 6 things that I thought were interesting that came out of Clark's press conference today, as well as the depth chart that Vanderbilt released. First, let's talk about injuries. On the offensive side, the big news, Ben Bresnahan, their tight end, who's outstanding in my opinion, is day-to-day. He is not listed on the depth chart this week. In fact, I'll get to the upshot of that in just a minute if he doesn't play. But just for now, know that Ben Bresnahan is day-to-day and could not play or may not play against Stanford this weekend. 2 more big things on the offensive side of the ball. Center Michael Warden has an ankle sprain. He's sore. Apparently, it is not a structural issue, but he is not listed on the depth chart this week, so that indicates he may not play. But if I heard it correctly, I don't think that was ruled out either. Patrick Smith, their running back, last week apparently not out with an injury. Just reading between the lines of what Clark Lee said, I think they liked Rocco Griffin better last week. Patrick Smith was their number 2 running back for the opener, but it appears he will probably play this weekend. On the defensive side, the bad news, Derek Green, who they, I think, had counted on as part of their defensive line rotation, hasn't played yet, was sidelined through most of fall camp, I think maybe all of it. Derek Green is still a no at this point, so he will not be playing this weekend. Malik Langham, who I thought would play a lot more than he has so far, is cleared to play. Clark Lee said today that is a pain tolerance. I don't remember what he said the injury was. In fact, I don't think he said one. But Malik Langham, you would hope that they would see a little bit more this weekend. One more, you saw safety or defensive back Chase Lloyd, I think they classify him as a safety, go out late in the game at Colorado State. Apparently, he's got a shoulder injury. He was cleared to return for that game, but did not. But anyway, Chase Lloyd apparently is going to be a go for the Stanford game. So frankly, the Commodores are in pretty decent shape as far as health goes, and I think you would have to say in good shape if Langham and Bresnahan can play, and it sounded like that's a possibility. Although, going to the depth chart, Bresnahan is not listed this week. Their tight ends in order. They go Gavin Schoenwald, Braden Bapst, Joel DeCourcy is the 3 that they list. So that's what that would look like if Ben Bresnahan does not play. Let's see, the guards and the center are interesting right now. They list Cole Clemens as the starting left guard, backed up by Julian Hernandez. Now, I don't know that that's necessarily good because they've got Hernandez listed as the starting center with Kevo Wesley as their backup. Vanderbilt's had trouble at the guard spots. So, again, this indicates they're a little bit thin there. At right guard, they list Ben Cox as the starter. I believe he got pulled last game for Dan Dawkins. They list Bryce Bailey as the backup in an or situation with Dawkins listed first. Really not a lot of other news that comes out of the depth chart on the offensive side of the ball. It's about what you would expect. Now on defense, it's a little bit different. I think what's interesting, I say different, maybe not a lot different, because there were some of these guys on the depth chart a week ago who didn't play, but just some things to watch here. I'd mentioned in fall camp that I liked freshman Devin Lee, and I also liked freshman Marcus Bradley. Now, neither of those guys have played yet this year, but they list at tackle. They list Davis, that would being Davion Davis, backed up by Malik Langham and then Lee. So it'll be interesting to see if Devin Lee gets in this week. At defensive tackle, Rashaan Wilkins, now listed as a starter in the middle alongside Davis. He was not breaking camp as a starter, but it appears he's earned that job, and frankly, he played pretty well at Colorado State. He is backed up by a pair of freshmen, Terion Sujic, who played, I think, 20 snaps in the Colorado State game, and Marcus Bradley, again, who has not played yet, but frankly, when I watched him, was their most impressive defensive lineman in fall camp. Again, that's just what I saw. That may have changed late in camp. There could have been an injury. There could have been any number of things, but just with my own eyes, that guy looked like he was ready to play, so it will be interesting to see if he gets a shot. At linebacker, they've still got Dericky Wright listed second behind Michael Owusu as an or. I would assume he's still working back in full health. He played a little bit more last week. Frankly, that's one where they've got to get him healthy because I think he is potentially a game changer for them, and I don't mean to use that word loosely. There were times in fall practice where he would dominate in spurts. So I think getting Dericky Wright healthy for Stanford is important if that is a possibility. At defensive back, Gabe Jeudy-Lally is now starting ahead of B.J. Anderson at one corner spot. Not a shock. Anderson and Alan George and Jeudy-Lally all played about the same amount at Colorado State. So I don't know that the order means a ton here. Perhaps you will see them all play a good bit this week based on what happened last week. And frankly, Vanderbilt probably doesn't have a dominant corner. Jalen Mahoney is probably their best. He had a pick last week. He is listed ahead of George on the other side. The safeties are still Max Worship and Deshaun Jerkins. So no big surprise there. Those guys ran 1 and 2. They both ran as ones all of fall camp. And so seeing those guys as the starter, no shock. Okay, a few more things. Clark Lee emphasized this several times in Tuesday's press conference. He wants them to get off to a faster start. Of course, the offense has scored one first-half touchdown all year. That came at the end of the first half against Colorado State. So he is making getting off to a faster start an emphasis. I don't know what that looks like, but he has noticed that's been a problem and addressed that today. Number 2, we talked a lot last week about Clark Lee's demeanor. He is a calm guy. He is not going to be a rah-rah person. That's his personality, and I think you have to be what you are. But one thing that I think you wanted to see last week was someone else to step up and be a leader. If you're not the guy, and leader is the wrong word there. I'm not saying Clark Lee is not a leader, but you had, for instance, on the James Franklin staff, you had a couple of coaches like Herb Hand and Sean Spencer who were really emotional guys, and Bob Shoop, to a certain degree, could do that when he needed to. Clark Lee's not that guy. He's not going to be doing the Shane Beamer running up and exhorting the crowd after the games and some things that other coaches do that James Franklin might do. That's just not who Clark is. But one thing that I said going out of that game is you need to find some guys who can get your team fired up. And apparently they made that a point of emphasis last week. He assigned some leaders to offer, my words here, sideline support. They assign roles to different players. Now, he didn't get very specific about who was used for what, but he mentioned that, and you saw the sideline demeanor at times much different. I thought that team played with more emotion and passion. I think they needed that a week ago, so it was interesting to hear Clark Lee address that in Tuesday's press conference. The fifth thing, attention to detail, was something that Clark Lee noticed. He talked about a reception, I think, that went to Trey McBride, how Anthony Orgy got picked off by an official during that play. He talked about eye discipline and some things like that they needed to take care of. They mentioned that, I think, on the touchdown, they meant to double team Trey McBride, did not. He caught a touchdown. So he mentioned just attention to detail is a thing that the team has still got to get better at. Now, he did say one thing, that they were better once they got settled in, that they didn't allow long plays. And so that was a positive that he took away. But he also said that execution's on the coaches. And so I think he was taking some of the blame for some of the things that we've seen in terms of execution that didn't go the way they wanted. So I thought that was interesting. Finally, he was asked about Monday's practice and how that went. Of course, you react one way off a loss and sometimes another way off a win. One thing that he has said consistently is he wants his players not to react to results, but just to react to the training and be prepared. And his thing is, let's hit the field prepared and not worry as much about results. Obviously, they want to win, but he wants them to really focus on not the outcomes, but did they put in the effort and the attention to detail that he wants them to. He said that they responded really well on Monday's practice, so I think that was something he was pleased with. He also said some things. He said belief and care, or really care, is not an obstacle for this team. He thinks that they put in the effort. But he said, interestingly enough, he did not like their efforts in practice last Tuesday and Thursday. Maybe some of that translated to the way that they showed up to start the Colorado State game. But in any case, Clark Lee has addressed that, seemed to feel good about the way they responded to Monday's practice. Again, the big takeaways this week, probably injuries. Vanderbilt may not have Ben Bresnahan. It will not have Derek Green on the defensive line. Patrick Smith should play this week. Apparently, it didn't sound like an injury situation. Michael Warden may not play this week. He's got a sprained ankle. He is not listed as one of the two guys at center, and Chase Lloyd should be available. So anyway, check out all our work at vandysports.com. Our YouTube stuff is free. We've got plenty of paid content this week. We had Bruno Reagan's breakdown of how things went on Saturday and his words. I had some instant thoughts after the game. It was a premium feature. I'll do that every week. We have some snap counts courtesy of Pro Football Focus. We'll have our 3 observations, 2 questions, and 1 takeaway feature coming up later this week. And, of course, we'll try to do some more stuff throughout the week. We've always got our podcasts. Those are free. Anyway, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That really helps us out. You'll get notifications when we go live and when new videos come up. So if you're out there listening, please punch that subscribe button. That really helps us out and helps support our work here. Not a big thing that you can do, but it's a big thing that helps us. In other words, not a lot in terms of effort, but something that really makes a mark on our end. Anyway, I'm Chris Lee, the publisher at Vandy Sports, the host of the Vandy Sports Podcast. Thank you for watching our YouTube channel, and we'll be back with more video at a minimum after Saturday night's game with Stanford, when Bruno Reagan and I will go live to talk about whatever happens there. Thank you for listening. Remember to subscribe, and we really appreciate your support of our work at vandysports.com.